Hi everyone, I wanted to walk through some information about formulas, and a little bit before we get started on that, let's just take a look at tables. So in the sheet that you see on the screen here, I created a table in the first 4 columns. I did that by clicking in the data and then doing on the Home tab here the Format as a Table and picking a style. And you can see you get previews when you mouse over these, so you just pick a style that you like. And then in the little dialog box that opens after you pick a style, I made sure that the box was checked beside my table has headers. So this first row is headers, and you want to retain those. If you don't check the box, then whatever's in this first row gets replaced with generic headings, column 1, column 2, etc. So we'll get out of there, and I wanted to show you that now that we have the table, it just has 31 rows in it, or 30 rows. You can use these list arrows in each of the headings to do things like sort. So I could sort this list A to Z, or I could filter. I could click Select All to unselect, and then I could filter for just some of the names in this column, and that will filter the table. So if I did the first 3 names, click OK, so we see the table now just has those 3 names in it. And I'm going to undo that. So anyway, so this is a table, and a lot of things you can do would be to sort and filter by different columns here. So I just made up this data so we could illustrate the formulas. So here we have, over on the right side of the page here, we have groups of formulas. So we have algebra formulas, functions, if functions, and text functions. So these are very common ones that you're liable to see in almost any application of Excel. So if I click in the result here, if I click up in the table, you see that what I did in the formula was I added C2 and C3, as I show over here in the syntax, and that simply adds those together and it gives you the result. So use the plus symbol on the keyboard to do that. You can do a subtraction using the minus symbol. So you see here that the formula is the same as what I'm showing you over here. I had to have a space in front of it over here so it would stay here and not show you the result. So this is text, even though it looks like a formula. But the real formulas are in the result column here. You can multiply using the, I guess you call that the asterisk, between the cell reference and the number, or you can make another cell reference. So you could multiply C2 by some other cell as easily as you can multiply it. You can multiply it by a fraction, as you see here, to give you a percent. And you can divide using the slash. So C2 divided by 2, and that gives you half of what you see here in C2. So those are real easy algebra formulas, but Excel is filled with functions. So if you click on formulas up here, you'll see these functions. There's all different kinds of functions here. And the benefit of using the functions is it saves you from having to know all the algebra that might go into the calculation. Now, the sum is pretty easy. So if I click in the sum, what I did was I summed the whole column. And because it's in a table, Excel is using the table name instead of the cell references from C2 to C31. So that is all the same, but that's why it looks the way it does. So I want you to see over here. Now I can do, instead of sum, if I replace that with min, that finds the lowest value of the numbers in that same range. And max finds the highest value. And then count will count the number of cells that have numbers in them. So it's counting the range, and so if we take a number out, you see the count changed to 29 because there's no number in that cell. And then the average again, the average of the range, if I click here, it's the same range. What that's doing is adding all these together and dividing by the count to give the average. So those are real common functions. You'll find those in two places. One is on the Formulas tab, Auto Sum. You have all those that are commonly used there. But on the Home tab, in the Edit menu, in the Editing group, you have the function, and you can get to it from here as well. So when you want to insert a function, you can pick it from this list, or you can pick it from going to the Formulas tab and going through the categories there. There's yet another way, which is to do a find. So if I wanted to add a formula here, I can actually just click on the Insert Function button here, and it brings up a dialog box. Now, because there's already a function here, it brought up the if function, and that one, the benefit of using these dialog boxes is that it helps guide you. So the first thing is the logical test. So the logical test that I'm using is asking, is C2 greater than 200? C2 is greater than 200. That's the test. And so if that's true, then you get true. If it's not true, you get false. And then the other two fields are, well, what do you do if it's true, and what do you do if it's false? So what I've said is display yes or display no, depending on whether it's true or false. And so this helps you understand how to fill in the different parts of the formula to get the result you want. So if we click in a blank cell and click on the functions, we get the Insert Function dialog box. And so what you do there is you just type in the one that you're after. So if we're looking for upper, do a search and it finds upper, and we can insert that. And then once you've inserted it, you get this dialog box, which then helps you fill out the formula. So it's asking, which text do we want to change to uppercase? So all I have to do is pick a cell, and it will change that to uppercase. So we'll take that out. So we've done the easy common functions, and now we get to some that are a little bit more complicated. So we have the if, the sum if, the average if, and the count if. So I have put this is a text box that's floating on top of the worksheet with the if dialog box, just so that you can see that. And so in the text here, you see how that looks. If you go to insert that, and you don't have this dialog box open, so let's do it up here, so you can see that. Now you'll see the little hints down here. So the first part is the logical test. So that's what's in the logical test field over here on the form. So you type in the logical test, and then you put a comma, and then the value if true. And if the value is a number, you just enter the number. But if it's text, you have to put it inside quotations. And you see that in the dialog box here. If you type yes in here, Excel automatically enters the quotation marks when you tab to the next field. But if you're going to just do it up here, editing in the formula bar, you need to know to do that. So, so the sum if is going to look at a sum if, and so we see the range that it's going to look at, and then the criteria, and then the sum range. So what it did is that you see these highlighted in different colors over here in the worksheet. So the sum if, we looked in column A, table 1, service, we looked for surgery, and when we found surgery, we used this other column, the fee column, to add the surgery. So what that did was it added up the surgery fees which were 1694. And now there's another way to do that is down here at the bottom I put in a subtotal, and that's another formula, a function, the subtotal function. And the 109 is a code that the function number, there's a bunch of numbers which tell Excel what it is to do for the subtotal. So 109 is the sum of the rows of the table that are showing. And then the table 1 fee is what's being summed. All right, so if we go over here and do a filter, and we choose surgery, click OK. Now you see we get 1694 is the sum of the surgical fees listed here. And that was 1694 was what we got when we used the SUMIF function, did the same thing. The average if works the same as the SUMIF, except that it gives you the average instead of the sum. And the COUNTIF, again, does the count. So if we searched for, in this case, I searched for cardiology, and we found there were 4 cardiologies listed in this column. So that's how you use the if functions. And then there's some text functions that manipulate text. So the one that is at the top here is write, and what that does is it gets the first 4, it gets the letters, the 4 letters on the right of the cell that we've specified. So what we did is we specified the cell B2, and we said get the 4 on the right end. So you see what appears is the last 4 letters. Now the left works the same way, except that it starts at the left end. So we got the 4 letters at the left end with this formula. And then mid will do a similar thing, except it pulls letters out of the middle. And in this case we started at the 3rd place, and we took 4. So that left us with spit. Upper will arrange the text in uppercase. So I used B4 with clinic all in lowercase, and so that turned it into all uppercase clinic. And lower does just the opposite. It took the OBGYN up here and turned it into all lowercase. And then proper gives a capital letter uppercase on the first letter of each word in the field. And then concatenate is another formula that's a little bit more complicated. What that does is it adds things together. So each thing that you want to add together into a string is separated by a comma. So we started out with some text inside a quotation, the visit with doctor, and a space, followed by whatever is in D2. So D2 was Houston, okay, and then followed by some more text, was, and the $sign, and then followed by C2. So the result of that formula, concatenate, with those things all inside the parentheses, is, oops, let me add that. Okay, was this result. The visit with Dr. Houston was $227. So we've used concatenate to pull different pieces of data and put them together in a sentence. And so this just illustrates again the same formula down here. So I hope this is useful to you, and if you have any questions, don't be afraid to use the help that you get from that dialog box. There is at the bottom of it, on each one of these dialog boxes, a help link to take you to a web page with more details about how to use this particular function that you're trying to use.